In Learning Objective D, we're going to solve equations using nth roots. So let's look at this first one. And really it works just like a normal solving a linear equation. So if letter A, what if it wasn't 2x to the fourth equals 162, but just 2x equals 162? Now the first thing you would do is just come on in to get x by itself and divide by 2. So on this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get the x by itself. In order to get the x by itself, we have to move the 2, and we have to move the little 4. The order in which you do that does make a difference. This x and the 4 are connected, so we're going to keep that one till last. So the first thing I'm going to do is come on in and divide by 2. Then we're going to be left with x to the fourth equals 81. Now, to get rid of a little 4, you're going to do the reciprocal. So 4 can be written as 4 over 1. The reciprocal of 4 over 1 is just 1 over 4. So to get rid of that 4, I do 1 over 4. If I do it to the left side, I have to do it to the right side. And remember, this is a little number. It's a small little exponent, so write it that way. What happens over on this side over here is you get 4 times 1 over 4, which just goes to 1. So we get x equals. And then we have to do 81 to the 1/4 root. If you want to look at it as a radical, you can. It would be this. Or you can just keep it as the exponent of 1/4. Recall what it means is what number 4 times equals 81. And the number that that's going to become is 3. So the answer here is 3. Now to solve letter B, we're going to take the same approach. I need to get the x variable by itself. Now, the easiest way to do this is notice that we have to get rid of this negative 3 and we have to get rid of this little 3. The question is, which do you do first? The easiest way to approach this is to work your way toward the x. So start with the number that's the furthest out. The one that's the furthest out is this little 3 here. And if you notice, this x minus 3 is kind of locked into the parentheses because of that little 3. So what you have to do first is get rid of the exponent of the little 3. The only way to get rid of the exponent of a little 3, which is 3 over 1, is to multiply by its reciprocal. So we're going to do 1/3. So it's a little 1/3 over here, and I'm going to do a little 1/3 over here. So then I'm going to be left with x minus 3 equals 8 to the 1/3 power. Again, over here, this 3 times 1/3 goes away to 1. Now be careful, we know this answer here. This is the 3rd root of 8. What number 3 times gives us 8? It's going to be a 2, so this becomes a 2. And then to wrap up this equation, to get x by itself, we're going to just do good old adding 3 to both sides. We are left with x equals 5. Let's look at this one. To solve it, we have to get x by itself. There's not a lot going on with x. It has just a simple little x to the cubed power. So I have to get rid of the little cubed. To get rid of the exponent, again, just do its reciprocal. So 3 is the same as saying 3 over 1. The reciprocal of 3 over 1 is 1/3. So I multiply this side by 1/3 and this side by a little 1/3. So I'm left with x equals 64 to the 1/3 power. If you want, you can recognize that means it's the 3rd root of 64, which is asking what number 3 times gives us 64, and the answer would be a 4. So the answer here is x equals 4. Now let's look at this one here. We have to get x by itself. Again, there's 2 things to move. We have to move this 1/2, and we have to move the little 4. Because that little 4 is just with the x, and here's how I can tell. If it had looked like this, then the 1/2 and the x would have been locked in with the 4. And to get the x by itself, I would have to move the 4 first. But if you look at it this way, what's with the x is just that little 4, the exponent. So that is locked in with the x. So move everything around it first. The easiest way to get moving the 1/2 over is to multiply by its reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1. And if you do that on both sides, you're going to get x to the fourth equals 16. Now the last thing you have to do is to get rid of the little 4, so you multiply again by its reciprocal. So the real question is, it says x equals 16 to the 1/4 power. So is there a number, if we do 4 times, will give us 16? And it should be a 2. So based on this, x will equal 2. Now, there's actually a twist to this problem. Whenever we're trying to solve an equation where that initial exponent was an even number, like 2, 4, 6, or 8, you have to stop and think if there's possibly a second answer. 2 works, and let me show you why 2 works. If I put it back in, what I'm going to get is 1/2. I'm going to take 2 to the 4th power. And when I simplify it, will I get 8? Well, it's 1/2. 2 to the 4th is 16, and that simplifies to 8. So it does work, so I know 2 is an answer. But you have to ask yourself if -2 would work. Let me show you this. If I go down here, if I do 1/2, and what if I do -2 to the 4th power? Well, -2 4 times, it's -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. It's 16. So that's 1/2 times 16. And that's going to also get you 8. So in this case, I have to stop and say, wait a second, there was a second answer, -2 also works. And I didn't talk about this the first time I showed you the problem that we had x to the 4th. I just wanted you to get the main concept. But know this, again, whenever the exponent up here that I'm solving, if it's an even number exponent, there's probably going to be a second answer, the plus and the minus version of it, so be cautious of that. The odd exponents, it's not going to happen. Let's look at another one. Now, to start off, I have to get x by itself. We have to move the -1, and we have to move the little 3. Like before, this x minus 1 is locked into the parentheses because this little 3 is in the way. That little 3 is the furthest thing out, so to get rid of the little 3, I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal of 1/3. Which will leave me with x minus 1 equals 27 to the 1/3 power. Now, is there a number 3 times that gives me 27? Sure, it's 3. So this is x minus 1 equals 3. To wrap it up, add 1 to both sides, and you get x equals 4. Now, I'm not going to worry about seeing if -4 works for this one because the exponent was actually an odd number. It's a 3. And just trust me on this, it's not going to be an issue. It's only with even exponents.